Welcome to Accounting Life with Jotham Ty. Our guest today is Dan Fletcher, CFO at Planful. In this episode, Jotham and Dan dive into what it takes to build a modern finance function, covering leadership, storytelling, cross-functional strategy, and how AI is beginning to reshape accounting operations, from contract review to cash forecasting. Now, our host, Jotham Ty.
Mr. Dan Fletcher, welcome back to the Accounting Live podcast. Good to have you on today.
Well, it's great to be here, Mr. Jotham Ty. This is my second trip on the podcast, so I feel honored to be a repeat guest.
Well, I am honored that you are honored because you are also one of our favorite CFOs. I don't say that to every CFO that comes on the podcast, by the way. Maybe I do. But I think obviously from an industry perspective, you bring a lot of experience. You've worn, many different hats. I know you have an accounting background, obviously have strong expertise in FP&A, and obviously being a CFO at one of the leading finance software companies out there gives you a lot of maybe perspectives on the current state of automation and really what we mean by current state of automation these days, aka AI. So I'm glad you're here, and hopefully we can drill down onto some of those topics.
Well, certainly appreciate the kind words and love talking accounting, as you know. I suspect one of the reasons I'm here is I'm a very happy two-time Gapify customer, but we'll just set that off to the side and we'll have a good conversation today because we're at a very exciting point in time in the accounting industry. We've got multiple different things buffeting and benefiting the role and the industry. And so I'm excited to dig in.
Well, that's a good segue to my first question. And yeah, I don't make like big, bold statements. You've known me for several years now. I like to think of myself as a very rational, like even keel kind of accounting leader. But clearly, in my opinion, there's been so many changes the last couple quarters, of course, all driven by what's happening in AI. I'm hearing very quickly accounting leaders shift their perspective on how excited they are about AI. We're seeing new tools being released every other day, it seems like, which all are benefiting, of course, our industry, because automation, as you and I know, it's been lacking since I joined the profession 20 plus years ago. So I think what's helpful for our audience, Dan, to start off is just getting your perspective on what's new. Like, what are you seeing that's brand new in the last quarter or two that excites you as a CFO?
Certainly. Well, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to just briefly go through a conversation you and I have had many times. We've known each other for nearly 5 years. We're both passionate about accounting. And yet, from the very beginning of your and I friendship, we knew there were issues facing the accounting industry. Just a couple stats you and I always throw out, 30% decrease in applicants for the CPA exam over the last decade. The work has changed as data has proliferated and business has gotten more complex. Accountants will say, depending on who you ask, anywhere from 40 to 60% of their work is truly manual. Data entry, invoice abstraction, matching of transactions on a bank rec or a month-end reconciliation. And this is just not what they signed up for. Accountants, that is, when they went and studied for hours and hours to learn how to make estimates and understand businesses and to follow complex rules and make judgments and mitigate risk. And so it's a problem. And they have sort of said the quiet part out loud and voted with their decisions to just choose other career tracks, whether it's finance or something else completely. For all we know, many of them became veterinarians. And so we want that talent in our industry, in accounting, and yet we recognize the work has gotten a bit too mundane and it's not, in their eyes, driving value, driving business outcomes. So you and I, like I said, have talked about this for years now, 5 years, but you could go back 10 years, and if we'd known each other then, we'd probably have started talking about it then. So what excites me is that during that 5 year period that you and I have known each other, there has been significant progress made on automation in accounting. And it's non-Gen AI. This precedes Gen AI. So this would be folks like Gapify automating the painful month-end accrual process around vendors, around employee accruals. That's great news for accountants. And I don't think you'd find a single accountant who wants to manually do that work. Planful, my own company, which is what we call enterprise performance management, but practically speaking, handles month-end close, including consolidation and reporting and planning and analysis, all of those things. And much of it is automated. A good example would be consolidation. For any of our accountants listening who've ever done a manual Excel-based financial consolidation of multiple entities and trial balances, you know this is not fun work. And it is days of work, 2 to 4 days extracting the trial balances, setting up the rules, doing eliminations, FX conversion, allocations. It's pain. It's a pain. And you constantly are worried about missing something during that. So Planful has automated that for a decade, consolidation. So there's been progress made, and I would guess anywhere from now 30 to 35% of that accounting manual work has been automated. So that excites me just up front, Jotham. And there are many other examples: AR automation, AP automation, tax automation that accountants all benefit from. The second part of what I'm excited about is, of course, Gen AI. What has changed with Gen AI is all the automation up until now has been rules based. You set up your rules and the machine runs against those rules and the mousetrap clicks and you get an automated process, which is great, right? But it didn't have the ability to think or, contextually learn and adapt as the data adapts. And that's what Gen AI is so good at. And so you can see this bright future for accounting where, hey, we made headway on automation up to the point where we kind of ran out of steam. And now Gen AI opens up a totally new frontier or a new dawn to be more, floral in my language. And the sky's the limit, I think, on what can be automated next, which I'm sure we will get into.
Well, and I don't know how everything kind of like came together and now it's like created this spark where automation, whether it's non-AI, non-gen AI, or AI itself, like it seems like there's a rising of the tides, and there's greater interest in automation all around, and of course there are just different ways you can get that automation again, whether it's an AI solution or not. And I think that's something that at least here at Gapify we've seen a keen interest now from businesses who want to take automation seriously because they're seeing different tools that can help them get there. And so your point earlier about just accountants wanting to be more strategic, I remember that tagline several years ago, not really resonating in the market as much as it is now. But I think with all these options available and all these new amazing technology available today, I think accountants are starting to see like my job could be really great if I had these tools and I could do this instead. Um, so it is, very exciting times ahead, Dan. And, want to double click because I know our audience here are practical accountants like you and me. I think we all can agree there's a lot to be excited about. We all agree there's a lot of solutions out there. Do you have a take or do you have like a philosophy on, for Gen AI specifically, like what are use cases you think should be prioritized? Are they ones that execute mechanical work? And I know you and I had a conversation about this, but is it, A, doing more of the mechanical work, or B, like augmenting strategy? So maybe on, flux analysis and so on versus AP invoice execution. Um, of course, there's no right answer, but always fun to get an industry leader's take on it.
Well, I'm going to be squishy on my answer, and I'm going to say both, but it depends. And so, just broadly speaking, we're still very early in Gen AI and accounting. Certainly more ahead in other areas like sales effectiveness and coding and devs have been using things like Copilot to great effect for a couple years now. And in accounting, what's different is that the tolerance for error is zero. Where, if in marketing, a campaign, gets sent to the wrong list, it's annoying and you've got some cleanup to do, but you break things, you move fast. In accounting, if the AI hallucinates and it books 1 million in the wrong account, I mean, it could be potentially criminal, or at least you could have serious liability. And so accountants have very correctly done one of the things they do best, which is assess risk and be patient. And they have waited and waited for the right use cases where we can get that error margin down to an acceptable minimum and let the AI do some work. With the caveat that humans still need to review it. As we'll get into later, I think human review of AI work in accounting will always be important. But you asked the question, what use cases? So certainly here at Planful, we use AI for a lot of documentation. So audit documentation for internal policy memos. And it's incredible at this. And that could be ChatGPT, it could be Claude. We have multiple different tools, but we're reviewing everything it does. That said, it not only adds value, creating ideas in the work that we maybe wouldn't have brought to the table, but it saves so much time by giving us a baseline to react to and enrich ourselves. So the interplay is this beautiful dance between another thinking mind and our team. And it's really great. It's like another member of the team. So document generation, policy generation, certainly processing of documents as well. So that's the document word 3 times now. And I know you had Andrew from Clarity on before, so he'll probably smile to hear that. We use it in anomaly detection. So you've got thousands of data points, and anomaly detection within our own tool at Planful is really powerful. Surface in any data bank for me, anything that looks out of whack, and we can investigate that instead of reviewing every data point. We can double click, drill down, figure out what the entry is, and either accept or kick it back for further review and action. So those are just a couple examples of true Gen AI use cases that I'm comfortable with today.
Yeah, well, are you telling me, Dan, that I no longer have to review a 200-page enterprise software licensing agreement or MSA to look for MFA, most favored nation, MFN language? I mean, those days hopefully are now numbered thanks to AI, and no one wants to read a 200 contract. No accountant goes to school, and it touches on your point earlier. I didn't get my CPA license to read contracts all day. So it's really just fascinating how quickly things are developing. And gosh, it took long enough because I've been waiting. If I had access to this like 10 years ago when I was still in the accounting field, obviously I would have learned a lot more. Although, there is some benefit to like getting your hands dirty and getting into those details, but this is not the time that we're in. So really great points there. And Dan, as we wrap up here in a few minutes, I think a lot of our accounting audience is always curious about how things are evolving on the FP&A side, obviously given the closest of our relationship with that function. Do you see anything? I know you touched on a couple. Like, do you see any trends or themes as it relates to AI that you find also exciting in the FP&A function specifically, or is it still early days in terms of Gen AI adoption?
No, I mean, there's a lot I'm excited about, and not to continually plug our own software at Planful, but the way we see the world and what we're building and have customers in beta on now are 2 really exciting use cases for FP&A around Gen AI. So one of them is already out in the wild at Planful, and that's the first, which is just general help. So create me a user with these permissions. Find me all reports that include European sales headcount, that kind of thing. So really just adminning a system, but saving a ton of time. The second wave is where things get really exciting, and that is interrogating the data. So FP&A will spend an enormous amount of their time fielding an interesting question or asking it themselves and trying to track down the data and manipulate it to help them. This is for things like decision report support. Should we hire 5 more reps in London? You've got to go figure out, well, how the reps there performed historically, what is the average ramping, the attainment, what is the average comp, and you've got to do an ROI calculation and establish a reasonable expectation of performance. And being able to ask those questions and get the answers surfaced, not do the calculations, but get the data surfaced very quickly for your own model is really powerful. And so that is interrogation of the data. And then the final wave, and this is in the near future, Jotham, will be agentic execution. So skills like an FP&A person has, which is telling it to go build me an ROI model to help me decide if I should hire more reps in the UK, and build me a report that looks like this, an investment memo that I can bring to my CFO and my chief revenue officer. And so these are all things that are happening. People are writing code on these today, yesterday, 6 months ago. So very exciting times in FP&A as well as accounting.
Yeah, and those FP&A examples are really good ones that I know are starting to happen on the accounting side as well. You mentioned just like being able to look for data within an application or an ecosystem of applications, leveraging Gen AI to do some data tracking or data fishing is always very helpful, because you and I know sometimes we spend hours looking for different reports that you don't know which menu or how to navigate to that right custom report. So what you guys are doing there at Planful is very exciting and also relevant for accounting. And then the data interrogation. So, in so many words, Scapify is also going to release a few features along those lines where, we have a data set. We can ask a lot of rich questions to really support the transactions that we're generating out of our respective systems, in your case, reports and so on. So all this is happening now, and I know, Dan, we only had a few minutes today, but I think this thing is evolving super rapidly anyway. So we'll probably need you back here in a few months or so. But I appreciate you sharing your perspectives with our audience. And gosh, maybe next time AI Dan and AI Jotham can connect and do these shows for us, so we can go play golf.
Let's do it. I'd watch it. I'd watch it from the golf course.
All right, Dan. Well, thanks again for joining the show, and we'll talk soon.
Always great to catch up, Jotham. Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want more information, please check us out at gapify.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.